This is my slip casting 16 days after I walked away from it. And honestly, it really doesn't look that good. I think it's too thin. The other one I had built up layer on layer, so it was a little thicker. I don't know if maybe having it dry in the mold that way encouraged this breaking. While I'm still working on my technique for slip casting, I decided I need bigger molds because I need more plaster to absorb liquid out of the slip. So I'm going to go ahead and make a big mold for those crucibles, and I'm also going to make a slip cast mold for the crucible top and see if I can't produce a better product than I've so far made, or at least increase my production capacity. I'm moving into slip casting V2 here. I just beefed up my mix with some more ingredients. I need to give it a little buzz. So I've got this stuff that I pulled out of the ball mill. It's essentially an incredibly finely divided steel powder. I have no idea what to do with it, so I've decided to do this. That may be the worst decision I've ever made. I was reading online about using finely divided steel powder in mortar mixes or concrete, and I guess that's actually a thing. But still, I have no idea if this is a good idea or not. Plaster here. I made these about 6 days ago, and then they've just spent 6 or 7 hours in a 200-degree oven, so they're still a little bit warm and they're very dehydrated. So I'll go ahead and fill them up. We'll let them sit for a bit and see what kind of cast we can get out of them. Here I am the next day with my slip casted crucibles. Look at that. Easy peasy. It's certainly not fine china. It's still pretty wet. I'd call it leather. We'll let those sit that way and dry, and we'll pour a couple more. Let's see how many we can make. I'm getting really good at reproducibly slip casting these things. I'm not going to call them crucibles anymore. I've decided I'm just going to call them casting cups. I don't know that I ever trust these things to be filled with molten metal. I'm wondering if it breaks, it's going to spray all over me. I don't know, maybe one day. I'm going to go ahead and fill this out because I don't want to do another big melt until I have something to pour into and the plaster didn't make it. So a couple of my products I'm not that fond of. Back when I was learning to do this, this would have been a tragedy, but now it's just recycling. Yesterday I slip casted some more of what I've been calling casting cups instead of crucibles, and my slip was really too thick, and I knew it was too thick. It was just kind of gloopy, but I did it anyway. And it's really an interesting finding because I've been following instructions on slip casting from people who are slip casting porcelain, and so they're looking for thin castings, and this is what I was getting. It's pretty but thin-walled, and I've been trying to build it up by repeatedly adding slip, which has not been working effectively. This is what I got this morning. So apparently, the way to get a thicker slip casting is to use thicker slip. Who knew? Well, I sure didn't. So I'm going to go ahead and cast up a whole bunch more of these things now that I've got the process down. I can easily make 2 of these every day by
pouring them in the morning and unmolding them the following morning. So before you know it, I'll have a whole bunch of thick ones, and I might actually be willing to use these as crucibles as long as they're thick like that. So updates to come. I'm getting really good at slip casting these crucibles with thick walls, but they're a little bit small, and so I'm going to use them as pouring cups. I've gotten good at making tops. I've gotten good enough that I've been breaking up my first efforts of thin-walled crucibles in order to make more clay. In fact, this is the last one I have. Let's put it back in the slip bucket and keep going. I've decided I am going to try to make something that I'm willing to attempt melting metal in. This was the form that I used for the pattern that I'm making these cups out of. Of course, they shrink a little bit, so they're not quite as big as this cup, but they're obviously the same shape. I'm going to go ahead and do this as a pattern just to see what I get. There's a high likelihood that this thing will break when I unmold it, but never fear. I spent $2 for this glass. I bought 2 of them. So let's go ahead and make a mold here. I've got first unmoldings here of my new slip castings. Like I said, I'd gotten pretty good at thick-walled castings in this size. It's thick enough that it's possible once I fire it, I'd actually be willing to try melting something in it, because the other ones just felt way too delicate. I just thought they were not safe. But it's small. So here's my first casting off of that blank that I created with a cup. It's not quite symmetrical. Its inside volume is pretty good though. I really am going to try to melt with this. It's kind of fun to learn that you can shape these things just by using a wet sponge. You don't have to use sandpaper, which is what I was doing before. Just sponge it down and it will submit to your will. It comes out looking really nice. Look at the edge of that thing. So again, this is still a prototype. I'm going to try for something much closer to that next time, but this is going to be my first real attempt. So I'm going to give this 10 days to dry in the air, and then I'm probably going to bake it for several hours at 200 before I put it into fire. And once I've got it nice and fired, I'll melt something in it, just some aluminum. So stay tuned for that. The only other clay-related thing I wanted to show you was this is some clay that I made from dirt. Frankly, I think it's clay, but it's possible it's just dirt. It does seem to dry like clay. You can mold it like clay. I think if this were just mud, it wouldn't act like this, so I think it is clay. I'm going to need a lot of that. And it looks, yeah, I made a turd. I'm going to need a lot of that. So I think I'll call this one a wrap. Got 10 days before I can do any more content because I got to let all this stuff dry before I try to fire it. I will say this stuff uses a lot of clay. Pouring too small and too big took this bucket from brimful to that, so it uses a lot of material. I'm really kind of out. So thanks very much for watching, and feel free to like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Come on back. We'll keep doing this. I seem to be developing sort of running themes. I know I've got the bathroom, I've got melting, I've got the garden, and now I seem to have pottery. I can't keep up. I'm doing so many things at once. And actually, that's not all I'm doing either. So more to come. See you later, and thanks for watching.